When writing the book, it was really fascinating to recognize that there was this one big insight that came was like, for leaders to be able to drive alignment, it involves moving the organization, people, from why me to why we need to do this. It's the rallying point around the purpose of the initiative and why it's important. And when people really understand that, it's incredible the level of adoption, the engagement, the dedication to the work. These projects are long. People get burnt out on things. When you're building products, you're working on the same thing for years in some cases. And so you really have to be that purpose, that clarity is the fuel. Teams need to stay high-performing teams.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP, Mary Lou Kaiser here, and it is game day at the Play Your Position podcast, and you know what that means. It means that I have today's starting quarterback suited up, ready to take the field and take us inside the world of digital leadership and digital transformation. His name is Jonathon Hensley. Jonathan, are you ready for kickoff?
I'm ready, Mary Lou.
Well, I am too. So team, here are some things that I know about Jonathon. First of all, he's the co-founder and CEO of Emerge, a digital product consulting firm that works with companies to improve operational agility and customer experience. For more than 2 decades, Jonathon has helped startups, Fortune 100 brands, technology leaders, large regional health networks, nonprofits, and more transform their businesses by turning strategy, user needs, and new technologies into valuable digital products and services. Jonathon writes and speaks about his experiences and insights from his career. He's got a book coming out soon called Alignment, and he lives in the Pacific Northwest like me with his wife and 2 boys. So Jonathon, it's so great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary Lou.
Yeah. So my first question every time for guests is, would you please tell us your story about when did you get the call to leadership and how is that influencing the way you're playing your position?
So I had an early introduction to leadership. I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and seeing my parents and aunts and uncles lead companies, both small private practices, like my mother's medical practice, to my uncle building a company of over 1,700 employees, I had early opportunities for mentorship. And it really inspired me to want to become a leader and an entrepreneur. And so that focus was about first finding my passion that I could build on top of and then start to build leadership skills and qualities around that passion to fulfill my dreams. And that really happened when I started to see the intersection between human behavior and technology, and I found my opportunity.
Yeah, so we were talking just a minute ago in the pre-chat about you being a senior citizen in the world of digital transformation, because you've been doing it since the late 90s. And, nowadays we take just for granted that we have access to all these amazing technologies like what we're talking over, Zoom and podcasts, right? Websites, everything has been transformed. You witnessed, it sounds like in your family, leadership and entrepreneurship. And as somebody who is leading a company in digital transformation, what kinds of challenges are you seeing in the digital space right now when it comes to leadership?
Well, I think there's a couple of really important issues that leaders have to think about when they're approaching digital transformation. One is they really have to re-educate themselves on the tools. Being a user of technology, whether it's on your smartphone or, online, is one thing, but to actually lead the transformation process and how you actually build that technology and how you integrate it to empower people, to elevate the operations of your organization, to purposely drive the mission forward that your organization exists for, is very, very different. And so it's really important for leaders to have an understanding of not just what technology is, but they have to have an acumen in design thinking as well as a business acumen. And so they really have to bring all of these different disciplines together coherently. And that's a really big ask for a lot of leaders who are more traditionally trained.
Okay, so I'm curious, what percentage, maybe you have this stat at the ready, or if not, of your best estimate, because you've been in this space as long as you have, what percentage of companies have not yet made the transformation to digital?
I would say that every company in some form or fashion has done some work. I think what's more staggering to me is the rate of failure. Statistically, anywhere between 70 and 86% of digital transformation initiatives fail.
Why? Why is that?
It goes back to, what I was saying about there's a key component of leaders needing to understand what they're getting themselves into. And there's an expectation that technology will solve these problems, but what it really is technology is just a tool. And so leaders have to understand the people side of how technology is empowering us to be successful. And I think one of the most critical pieces to that is understanding this concept of alignment. So leaders have a very difficult and big task ahead of them right now, I would say more than ever than before, which is they have to become experts, not just in the technology, but how do they build alignment in their organization to make these initiatives successful. And when we study why digital transformation fails so often, it's usually this issue of lack of alignment. And so let me explain a little bit more what I mean by alignment. So when we look at alignment, there's 4 different types of alignment that you need to have the highest performing organizations and drive success. The first one is individual alignment, which really means somebody understanding how their work contributes, how it matters to what they're doing and how they make a difference. The second is team alignment, which really deals with how we build alignment with others and integrate our unique disciplines and experience and perspectives to solve problems together. And the third is organizational alignment, dealing with how do we organize all of this with the larger vision and the strategic priorities of the organization. And then how does that align with the marketplace? And if these things are misaligned and the details are not worked out to empower people at every level, then you have huge cost overruns, massive issues of potential failure, and it's actually fairly predictable that these initiatives will fail. And so that's what we see is leaders need to become experts in building alignment and understanding how technology actually comes to fruition as they approach transformation.
Wow. Thank you for taking us down inside those 4 key pillars of alignment. I love that. And I presume your book is all about that in more detail. And do you share some case studies and examples?
The book goes very deep into what alignment is. We even go into the neuroscience of it, how it actually is not just a leadership principle, but it's actually a biological component. We talked to leading neuroscientists like Dan Cable, who wrote an amazing book called Alive at Work, and he teaches at the London Business School and publishes with Harvard, and really talking about how you build cultures of innovation and how you empower people to actually be successful. And it's actually that biological component that we're talking about tapping into to help you unleash the potential of your teams to solve problems better than anybody else.
Nice. Yeah. I go to the chiropractor every week to get realigned, get my spine, all my parts, right? Because, when you work on a computer and sleeping patterns and all that can get us out of alignment. So I love that you bring in the biological side and also the neuroscience side that I'm excited to see your book when it comes out. Do you have a date? I know we're recording this at the end of February. When is it due out, Jonathon?
The book will launch March 17th.
Okay, wonderful. So about less than a month.
It's coming right up.
How exciting. Oh, it's so great. So when you are working with your clients and they come to you, do some of them come to you having had the failure experience that you just described, and then they say, we need you to help us fix this? Or do we start over from scratch? Like, take us into your process of when you're working with clients, what they're like when they show up at your door.
Yeah, many times our clients have an existing product or service that they're looking to elevate and take to the next level. And they have oftentimes experienced some form of failure. We're coming in there to help diagnose it, really understand what's the root causes of the challenges that they're facing, and then how do we overcome those challenges and make an authentic connection to the customer, to the user of their product or service. So we take a really user-centered, customer-centric approach to how we solve problems for our clients, and then we move them through a path of understanding the problem, not just at a tactical level, but really what is the emotional, empathetic level that we need to understand in order to make that connection with them. And then we guide them through that process and then start helping them design and develop better components to their product so we can bring that to market and strengthen that connection.
Yeah, the user experience is complex. We're all looking for different things. And I could tell from looking at your website that you work with some pretty big companies that have a lot of people within them and are serving a very specific kind of audience. And I can only imagine the complexity that goes into that journey you take them on to really pinpoint what is their customer wanting? What makes a difference to the customer?
It takes a lot of work. I think it's one of those things that whether you're looking at digital transformation or building a product, it's easy there's so many frameworks or methods out there that try to oversimplify the work to be done. And I think it really does a disservice to a lot of people who are trying to not just build a great product, but actually thrive in the marketplace. And so it's really important, I think, to make sure that everybody in a team understands the complexity of what they're solving for. And so when you really start to look and unpack those problems, you really start to diagnose and understand, like, not just the symptoms of a situation, but the root causes, what's the cascading effect that problem has on somebody's emotions, on somebody's needs. It's really empowering to create a better product and actually move faster if you take that upfront time. And that's one of the things that we see get skipped most often is they think they've done the strategy work and they think it's good enough. Just start building something. And that's usually that work gets thrown away.
Yeah. I don't know what it is about us humans, but boy, we just want to jump into stuff. Just get me to the end, right? I don't want to do all this pre-work. It's too much or it's taking too long. And it's such an interesting, the world we live in now because of the rise of technology and how big a role it plays in our lives. I like what you said earlier about people think that, I just need to plug and play. Like, I'll get this system or I'll install this one thing and then suddenly all our problems will be solved. And it's absolutely not the case. You've seen it time and time again. And the space that I move in, I see it all the time too. It's not a great parallel, but sometimes people think, if I just get my website up, everything's going to change. And that there's a company that's kind of what their message is on their ads is they make it seem like all you need is a website and you're going to be selling your product and people are going to be coming to you. And that is so not true. That is not true at all.
Absolutely.
There's so much work that goes into it.
I mean, that's, I think, part of the problem is the promise of technology is just so alluring, and especially the way it's promoted. I mean, you buy this tool, build this website, everything else will just fall into place. And it's just the beginning. I mean, there's so much work, as you just said, that has to be done. And I think one thing that's worth calling out is what great strategy is for when you're building a digital product, or actually, honestly, any great strategy for your business, is really difficult, I think, for people to find good sources of truth around, because strategy is often confused with things like ambition or mission, vision, core values, goals, planning. None of those are strategy. And those things are all really important. You need to be ambitious. You need to have a clear vision. Your values are essential to your business and to who you are as an individual as well. These things, though, none of them are strategy.
So what is strategy?
Strategy is defining a place of where you're going to focus. So the challenge that you are going to overcome, how you're going to overcome it in a coherent domain of action that you will take going forward. So when we look at strategy for a product as an example, the foundation of product strategy is understanding what's the vision of the product, how does it fit anchored to the company and what you're trying to achieve, really understanding the challenges that you have to overcome, and then understanding what's the outcome for the business you want, what's the outcome for your customer, and how will you measure forward progress. Those are the foundations of great strategy. And they become really important because they require you to get extremely clear. And usually outcomes or desires are one-sided. Like, we want to be the biggest company of XYZ. How do you measure biggest? Why is that important? Who does that matter to? That's an ego-driven metric. If I say I want to serve, make sure that there are 1 million kids that never have to go to bed hungry, that's a very specific, purpose-driven, way to look at it. Now, there's many ways to do that and fulfill something, that kind of an ambitious mission, which is a very purposeful one. But if let's say you're going to create a digital product, then you need to know, well, what is the challenge? What kind of product are you creating? Is it access to food services? Is it a problem around education and nutritional information? What is the problem that needs to be solved to allow you to connect to those 1 million children and their families? What is it going to take? And then what's the first step you need to take? What's that outcome for your business that makes you a viable business and that can thrive to pursue that mission at the same time while providing enough benefit to your customer? If those things aren't happening, there's not a clear value exchange, there is no product.
Mm-hmm. And there is no business.
Exactly.
And there is no helping 1 million people or children or whatever it may be.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Thank you for describing that. I think listeners will appreciate hearing exactly what strategy is in comparison to those other words you brought out, like ambition and mission and vision, which get tossed around all the time, which is another limitation of technology, is that I've mentioned this term a million times, I feel like, on this show, which is the highlight reel vibe that exists on social media, on the internet, that we don't spend any time really digesting and thinking about what are we consuming here? What is that meme that I just saw really mean when it says, be resilient or whatever the thing? And I make those and I put them out because it's content, right? So there's this really interesting dance that we are all partaking in. And then here you come along with your company and you are saying, okay, yes, we can all be dancing, but let's get the moves down right. What dance are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so important, especially, if you're looking to build a business or create a product or service that is, and you're saying, I need to be different. Being different for what reason? How are you going to differentiate yourself? Well, you can do that if you really know what problem you're solving and who you're solving it for. And you have this clarity, I mean, that's part of understanding a challenge is, when we talk about customer experience, what's the challenge I'm really solving? I think I see this in healthcare all the time. So we do a lot of work in healthcare, and it's been incredibly interesting. If you look at a lot of hospital websites as an example, those hospital sites are built for them, not for patients. So let me give you an example of that. So that a lot of those websites they have tons of information. They're very, very complicated, and they're trying their best to provide access to all of their services, but it's usually written in more of a way that's focused on the benefit of the healthcare professional. If you're a patient and you have an issue and you're in an urgent situation, you need to know where to go, how to get there, and you need to go and make that happen as fast as possible. It's so simple, yet we make things so complex unnecessarily.
Oh, it's
in
so
these experiences. True. And we've all, I use the hospital example because we've all at some point had to go to the doctor. I mean, everybody can relate to that, right? And it's not this linear transaction, but that's how it's architected many times. And health is this thing that we work on through our lives again and again. It's a very cyclical thing. And we're going to have ups and we're going to have downs. But it's the care that you have when you're working with a physician and the connection, if you have a great care provider, is totally different than the experience of going to the website. Why? There's this just fundamental disconnect often that's there. And it's not based on regulation. It's based on not truly understanding and empathizing and coming at it from a patient-centric perspective. They're coming at it from an organizational-centric position.
Yes.
That devalues the product, the offering.
Yeah. And it also is disrespectful to their end user. What's the point of a hospital? It's to serve people who are having a health crisis of some kind. Now, of course, there's other things going on inside hospitals. There's research and stuff like that. But you're there to help people who have an emergency, a health emergency, or need to see somebody, a specialist or whatnot. So again, a really interesting example. And I think this mistake is made across industries and also can go down to the individual level when somebody is running a small business or they have a solopreneurship. The website is built for them, not for who they're serving. And so they get enamored with all we need to make sure we have this and that and the other thing because they're looking inward versus inward from the point of view of who's going to come here. Yeah.
Right.
So I bet you do a lot of work of unraveling that.
Exactly. I mean, I think the core of your product is the emotional value you provide to your customer. Think of like Volvo, right? What are they selling? They're selling safety. That is their core product. Everything that they produce has to be aligned to safety.
Yes.
Then their actual product is cars, and then they have a whole series of services to protect that actual product and that core product, which is that emotional need, safety and service checks and all the other things that they do. Yep. Every product has that at some level.
Every product does.
And it needs to be defined and it needs to be present when you want to have really successful, high impact products that are successful in the market.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about just, again, using the healthcare examples, how many people now go to these pop-up clinics instead of, we don't go to the hospital if we don't have to. We actually avoid the bureaucracy. We go to clinics now that are where we can go online and make an easy appointment and we know exactly who we're meeting with and we know that they're going to be on time. I mean, there's all of these things happening in every industry right now to improve that experience because as people come in and see that there's a gap there, they're tapping into the opportunity and it's driven by this missing core understanding of what people are feeling and needing.
Yeah, great example there. As far as a time when things did not go according to plan, Jonathon, which happens to all of us, especially in a football game. You're a football fan like me. I would love for you to tell us about a time when you found yourself playing out of position, when things didn't go according to your game plan, such as being metaphorically sacked, intercepted, or you fumbled the ball. you may want to tie it to a client deliverable, or you could tell a personal story too here. But what I'd really love to know is, what was the situation? And then what lesson did you learn from that experience?
Well, it's a combination of these experiences was actually inspired the reason to write the book, to be quite honest. It's this idea of really wanting to understand failure, not just experience it, which we all have in some level, but to actually want to become a student of failure and to really understand, why do we fail as a team? And so, it's not one player on the field, to continue the analogy, right? It's we are all out there doing our part, and we all have to do our part in order to win. And so understanding what are the ways that we sabotage ourselves that add up to losing. And so, for me personally, one of the experiences that I had is this issue of managing expectations. I use this one because we're talking about technology and the expectations of technology, and this idea that it just solves the problem. And early in my career, I really fell into that as well. I was like, well, technology is the answer to everything. Just you can build, if you build great products and services, everything else should fall into place. And I just was passionate about that. And I was working with a large manufacturing company, and we were developing a tool to be used across their organization. They have about 75,000 employees. And this expectation was that we would build this tool, and we would then provide this tool to the employees, and it would just be this huge success. We didn't manage the complexity and the expectations in that project. And we built this incredible tool that then just never got adopted. It never got used. And the big mistake there is we didn't make the employees part of the experience and the process of creating that product. And today, I would never do the way that we did it then. And the idea of human-centered design and what we were doing was by no means mainstream at the time of this project. And so it was a hard lesson. Even though we thought we had done everything right, it was actually failure, because the expectations of the technology, did not meet the full needs of people, and it was not adopted, and it did not create the benefits for the organization that it needed to. And so that was a hard lesson, but we want to be constant learners, and so we've started to dig into that. And those kinds of things have big ramifications. I think it's when we think about failure and that, we failed as a team. We didn't have, that meant some people who had this big vision of what this tool and product could be for the organization didn't have a job anymore. It meant the organization had made an investment that wasn't going to propel them forward until they could course correct. Luckily, we had an opportunity to help them fix it too. We had enough trust and enough opportunity there where we did get employees involved, and we had that experience in order to turn that around. But it was very much a, 2 minutes left on the clock, fourth quarter, and we just made it in. But it was a tough lesson to learn, and one that has stuck with me for a long time. I think about that project still to this day, all the time.
Yeah, I bet you do. That's something that, again, failure is such an interesting thing because it does stay with us a lot longer than our wins. For whatever reason, I don't know if I've read a lot about brain. I'm not a brain expert by any means, but I'm fascinated by how our brains work. And one of the things about our brains is that we are wired to take in and pay attention to negativity more than positivity, which is interesting. And failure certainly falls into that. So when we mess up or something doesn't go right, that's what lasts over time. The blur of the celebrations, that's what it becomes. But that one time, right, or that thing that didn't go like we thought just hangs around. It's just interesting to me. But it sounds like you did recover and were able to continue to serve them in a way that brought about some positive change. So there was a silver lining. It
really was wonderful that we had that opportunity to correct things. And a lot of times we don't have those chances in business and in life. When writing the book, it was really fascinating to recognize that there was this one big insight that came was like, for leaders to be able to drive alignment, it involves moving the organization, people from why me to why we need to do this. It's the rallying point around the purpose of the initiative and why it's important. And when people really understand that, it's incredible, the level of adoption, the engagement, the dedication to the work. These projects are long. People get burnt out on things. When you're building products, you're working on the same thing for years.
Yes.
In some cases.
Yes.
And so you really have to be that purpose, that clarity is the fuel. Teams need to stay high-performing teams.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's going to be, if you drew it on a whiteboard, there's going to be those ups and downs, those peaks and valleys that come with any long-term project where people lose steam. And as a leader, part of that, the job of a leader is to get people back on board, revisit the vision, revisit the clear reason for why we're doing this. And not always easy to do that. I would love for you, Jonathon, to look into your crystal ball and share with us, what do you predict is going to have the greatest impact on how we show up to work in life over the next, say, 5 years?
Well, I think with everything that's happened over the last year, we're going to see a massive acceleration in digital transformation and how small businesses and large organizations are using technology to connect with each other and their customers. And I think we're going to see that continue to evolve the entire market landscape in ways that we can't even possibly imagine right now. I think a year ago, people could not have imagined being able to work from home the way that they do, the ability to collaborate globally, and we've had these amazing tools like Zoom and others that have driven this giant innovation. I think the industries that have lagged are challenged now to catch up, and those that have been at the forefront are going to be looking at clearly what's next. How can they drive that next innovation, that next piece? And I think there's certain areas that are really primed for that. I think the way that we think about financial services, the way we think about healthcare, as just two major examples, will be completely transformed from this last year and this push for innovation in the way that we connect and work.
Mm-hmm. I would throw education in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on.
Yeah. My son is graduating from college and it's going to be a virtual graduation. And we got the email about that. And the president of the college said, I understand how disappointing this is to so many of you, but we are confident that we'll be able to deliver as great a quality of an experience as possible. And that's a big disruption. That's new. Last year, students graduating from college and high school experienced the first round of virtual graduations. And this year we're in the same boat. And I don't know if it's necessarily bad. It's different. And there's an adjustment phase. There's an adjustment for everybody. Like maybe this is where we're headed. I'm optimistic. I think the changes that are coming that you're talking about are actually going to be, we're going to look back and say, wow, I'm so glad this happened. And then there'll be things that we mourn and grieve over losing. That's just normal. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot, more to be excited about going forward. I'm always an optimist. It's just who I am. I think that for better or worse, the last year has really forced us all to take a step back and say, is there a better way to do it? Is there a better way that we can engage and connect and use technology to better our lives? And I think a lot of people are realizing there is.
Yes.
And we need to embrace the things that are most important and then focus on how we use these tools and build new tools to help us really thrive in this new world. And I think that opportunity is really incredible right now because we have the infrastructure for the first time in history to do that with technology. We've made technology accessible to every level with the internet. And I think that that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what else is a great opportunity is when you're in the stands watching your favorite team score the game-winning touchdown. But even better, Jonathon, I'm going to put you in the red zone and there are less than 30 seconds left on the clock. You are down by 4 points. It's third down and it is now or never. We're at the part of the show I call touchdown. So please tell us a story about a time when you metaphorically ran the ball into the end zone for that game-winning touchdown.
Sure. So we were brought into a product that had been struggling for about 3 years, and we had an opportunity to really embrace a team that was ready for alignment and was really passionate and clear about what they needed to do. And we were able to roll up our sleeves and turn that project around where they had been stuck for over 2 years. And in 3 months, we had that product live to market, and it was a huge success for them.
Nice. Oh, yes, we remember our failures, but we can also celebrate big wins. I bet that felt so satisfying.
It was definitely an incredible moment.
Well, as we wrap up things today, this amazing conversation, would you please share with us 1 to 3 key offensive strategies straight out of your leadership playbook that listeners could implement right away to make some forward progress in their work and or life?
Absolutely. So I think the first one is, we always say at Emerge, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So focus on the problem you're solving. What's the job of your product or service for your customer? If you can really understand that, you can have a game-changing impact on your customer and your business. Second is lead with empathy and to remove bias. Our personal biases can really get in the way of our success. And even though we have really important experiences and perspective, we seek out information naturally that confirms what we believe. And we need to get ourselves out of the way and tap into the unknown about our customers to make a better connection, to make our product stronger. And that's a really critical thing. And third, I would say, is fall in love with failure. Become a student of it. Understand why products and services and businesses fail. The numbers are staggering, and you have an opportunity to take control of the game.
Nice. That's a great list. Love it. I actually was writing down, I love fall in love with the problem, not the solution. That's brilliant. And for people who'd like to learn more about you, connect with you, Jonathon, where do you hang out online?
So the 2 best places to connect with me and learn more about what we do is you can go to emergeinteractive.com. And we have a whole huge section of insights and resources for people creating and building products that definitely people should check out. And then LinkedIn is my main place. So find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. So team, you know that the links to connect with Jonathon will be on his show notes page at pyppodcast.com. Also, keep an eye out for his book. By the time this airs, his book will most likely be available. Jonathon, where will it be? Amazon, Barnes & Noble? Where can people buy it?
It will be available on Amazon and in the Apple Store.
Fabulous. Okay, so we'll keep an eye out for that. And before we say goodbye, Jonathon, tell us who your team is. Who do you love to watch on Saturday?
Oregon Ducks all the way.
Woo! Go Ducks, baby. I love it. I don't get to talk to a Duck fan very often. Oh my gosh. Well, Jonathon, you were awesome today. Thank you so much for taking us inside the world of digital transformation and also giving us so many things to think about as we all continue that journey ourselves. And I wish you all the best as you continue your journey.
Thank you. And you as well, Mary Lou. Thank you again for having me on the show.
The Right to Grow Writing Workshop is for fiercely independent business owners, freelancers, and solopreneurs who aren't getting everything you can out of your current writing efforts. In this workshop, you will learn how to write more efficiently and effectively to grow your business. Students love my small workshops because I create a safe space for self-discovery and collaboration. Also, you're not alone on your path to growing your business when you become a part of the Right to Grow family. Listen, running a business comes with a lot of challenges. Writing shouldn't be one of them. Learn more about this dynamic experiential workshop at pyppodcast.com/W2G. That's pyppodcast.com/W2G. I look forward to seeing you inside the Right to Grow cohort. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Got a great key offensive strategy you like to share? Write to us at coach@pyppodcast.com or on Twitter, use #PYP and let us know how you're running your ball into the end zone for those game-winning touchdowns.